Hey y'all, my name is Elise. Welcome to this channel. Thank you all for viewing, liking, commenting, and subscribing to this channel. Thank you all so much. With that being said, let's get straight into this video. So with today's video, we're going to do something a little bit different. This is going to be more of a conversation style video. And my very first guest is my sister, Maya. And the topic of this video, I'm not quite sure what I'm going to call it, but it's going to be about the state of the union, children, and the education system. My sister is an educator, and she's going to give us her perspective on the uh, trials and tribulations that is the public school system today. Um, we're not going to be talking like this is a job interview. This is very relaxed and comfortable. Again, she is the educator, but we're going to be very authentic in this video. So, with that being said, Maya, just tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Okay, well, thank you, sister. Um, well, my background is in paralegal. Um, I started off my journey at school at WC3. I started off as going in just to get my regular associate degree because
And
I
what
need
is WC3 for those who do not know?
Wayne County Community College.
Okay.
So I went there to pursue a degree. I had enough credits because I had been going to school for a check like people back in the day. But when I actually started to try to take my life serious, I found out that I had enough credits to get my associate degree. So I went on and just got my general study. And then while doing that, I shift to paralegal. I've always dreamed of being a juvenile defense attorney. So my mentor, he started talking to me about education. I had some reservations about, you know, where our school was going at that time, due to my daughter. She had some deficits, so I really took that interest there with my daughter and said, you know what? I always wanted to do this as well. I've always had those two goals. I wanted to be a juvenile defense attorney. I wanted to be a teacher. But he was saying, Maya, I think it would be best if you go into education because maybe you can save some of them kids before they even need to go to juvenile or if they get caught up in the legal system. Because once those kids get into the system, it's hard to let them go. So he said, you're relatable and you'll go over there and you can just be yourself and give real world experiences to those people and give that representation to the kids like you. So that's how I started off into school. I started off as a substitute. So I did that for a couple years, subbing around in different locations. And I said, ooh, I was getting my feet wet then. And I was like, oh my goodness, it's a lot has changed since you and I was in school. And I remember when we were in school, how they would say, technology is going to take over and you're not going to need this anymore. You're not going to be able to read. You're not going to be able to write. Computer's going to take over everything. And I'm like, yeah, right. Like, how is this going to happen? I can't see this. Many, many, many years later, here I am, giving my service back to my community. And I see exactly what they're talking about. And
They meaning the teachers that we had growing up,
yeah,
how
because
technology was going to change.
yes, because
The
so
education system that we know is not going to be the same years later.
right, because you got to remember, I'm very young, but I'm right there in that little age range where I'm
You're not
old.
very young. You're still young.
I'm very young,
Okay.
but I'm saying that to say because when I think about it, uh, I had to be in like maybe the 6th grade when computers really became a big thing. And we were using floppy disks and we were actually taking computer classes. So I really wasn't raised up on the computer stuff. I still had to go to the computer, do research, do my book reports, and
Go to the
find
library, actually cite sources from books.
books. Right. So I'm
Internet
a
sources were like bonuses, but we had to use book sources.
right. That's what I'm saying. You have to cite your sources.
Hmm.
It was pen to paper, pen
Hmm.
to paper. And
Hmm.
then as I got to maybe 11th grade, now, I have to type up papers and cite my sources and understand those formats and all of those little things like that. But there is a completely different shift from then. And I feel like I'm rambling on. I got off topic. But
It's okay. Let me just, okay, give us a little background about you and how you were as a student. Because in behind the scene conversations, you feel like you can relate to these students. You teach in the inner city,
mhm.
and you feel like you can relate to these kids. I mean, an inside joke that we say, you call these kids Eastside High. You call these schools you taught at Eastside High. Granted, you are a middle school teacher, and I think middle school is that fine line between kiddie and elementary children, how they act, and then you have the grown or growner or more mature adult, well, not adult, young adult kids in high school. Those middle school kids, sixth, seventh, and eighth graders, they've always been in the middle. Not too mature, but they're not too kiddie either. They're right there in the middle. And if you can change and mold the kids in middle school, you can shape them for the future. So, why do you call these kids Eastside High? But before we get into that, before we get into that, I want you to talk about what type of student you actually were. I mean, because you are my sister, and I'll let you guys know she was a terror in school. She was an absolute terror in school. And to see how she can relate and get to these kids on their level because she know where they're coming from. Because we grew up in the inner city. So Maya, um, what type of student were you? And how can you relate to these kids?
Glad you asked me that because this is why, you know, before I tell you, this is why I say, to be a teacher or to be a nurse, it has to be in you. This has to be a passion that you have. And looking at my background, you would never think that that is something that I would want to do. So, what kind of student was I? Well, I can say that I spent most of my time at home. Um,
And
I
why
got
is that?
I used to get in trouble. I had a
Needing to
mouth.
be suspended a lot.
I got suspended all the time.
Yes, you spent a
I
lot
was
of time at home.
I was always fighting. I was always in something. But what I can tell you is, I never thought of myself as somebody that, you know, had challenges with learning until somebody actually pointed out to me and said, "Hey, this is why you getting in trouble all the time." So I'll give you a short story real quick. Miss Peaches, we went to Parkman Elementary School. Um, I was always getting put out of school. I was always getting in trouble. And Miss Peaches and Miss Smith, they would come to me all the time and say, "Don't you get tired of your mama coming up to the school? Aren't you tired of embarrassing your mama? And go sit in the auditorium. You got your work in your hand, go sit in the auditorium." So one day I just wasn't having it. I wasn't having it that day. I didn't want to go home. I didn't want to sit in the office. Couldn't nobody tell me nothing. I was upset because I really was trying to do my work and my teacher wasn't trying to help me. She really wasn't trying to help me. And Miss Peaches, she pulled me to the side and she said, "You got this paper in your
R.I.P. Miss Peaches. I remember her.
She had these long nails, these glasses, this gap. Beautiful.
Yes.
But she said, every time you get put out of class, you always got your work. So what's the problem? And I would get mad and I wouldn't say nothing. And then she'll say, Maya, read your work to me. I'll read it to her. Don't have a problem with it. And then she'll say, what did he just say? I'm like, I don't know. She said, what do you mean you don't know? Read it again. So I would read it, and it's like one long gone ran on sentence. She said, Maya, stop. This is a period. That means stop. Pause. Think about what you actually just read. Can you identify the adjective in this word? Do you know the verb? Where's the noun? Couldn't tell her nothing. I'm in the third grade. I could read all the words on the paper. But she said, Maya, if you could read all this stuff and you can't comprehend what you read, you can't read. She said, so you got to be able to process this information. You have to think critical. This is what reading is. That's why you have a period. It is to stop. Your first sentence is your topic sentence. It's introducing you into what you need to know. So she actually took me through there and had me understand what it was I needed to gather to be able to read and actually process stuff because that was my problem. I couldn't read. And I was always
You
getting in
could
trouble.
read, but you couldn't comprehend.
I couldn't comprehend. So that still means I couldn't
You
read.
couldn't read.
It's better if I could, because I could just sound out words. I was good at sounding, I knew phonics, but I couldn't make that connection. So I didn't understand concept. I didn't understand theory. I didn't understand anything. And this was at third grade. I'm so thankful that she stopped me and caught me in my tracks. But once she took that time with me, I started getting in trouble less. I started wanting to be in school. Not saying I didn't get in trouble, because I still got in trouble. But when I would try not to get in trouble. It's just that how we came up. I had that reputation on me already that she the one that's gonna fight. Um, she gonna do this to this, but I had to protect my reputation. So even though I was trying to get my learning on, you wasn't finna play with me. So I took those lessons that she gave me from third grade and I tried to carry it on. And when we moved to Alabama, we was in fifth grade. I
You was in the
realized
fifth
that I
grade. I was
thought
in the eighth grade.
right. I thought that the people down there were slow. I thought that I said they slow. They can't read. They talk funny. They sound crazy. Eye opener. I realized that I really was behind once I got down there because
This
I
is
missed so
new to
much
me.
school. Yeah, I missed so much school that when I was there, I didn't want to get in trouble. I didn't know these people. I didn't care. So I really grappled with the content. It had me in the chokehold. I was asking questions, things that I would never ask before because I had a reputation here. I'm that girl. I'm putting paws on you, this and stuff like that. Or, I had that stigma of she just gonna get kicked out. She gonna be gone or all of that. When I got down there, I got my lesson and I fell in love with learning. So that's why I feel like I can identify with these kids because I know what it's like to sit in a classroom and be completely confused and not ask a question. I know what it's like to not want to ask a question because you're scared that everybody in the class gonna laugh at you because you messing up a word or because the teacher has said something 3 or 4 times and you still don't understand. I learned then that people learn differently and you have to meet people where they at. So at that point when I was there, I said I'm gonna go to school and be a lawyer because somebody got to speak up for us. Somebody got to advocate for us. And being that I was in the South and the way of living was so different from how we were in the city, I just felt like everything around me was injustice. Even though I still had that negative connotation around me to pop off, because I mean that's just what it was.
Yeah,
But
that negative stereotype.
right.
Hmm.
I had that on me. Didn't matter where I went, but I started seeing life differently. And this is at a very young age. I'm telling you, third and fifth grade. So now, as I got older, I just tried to be a lover of knowledge, a lover of understanding, and I got that at a young age. Now, why do I call them Fair East Side? You guys know, like I know, lean on me. Um, that
I
movie.
actually had a professor when I was in college who was a student of Joe Clark.
Really?
Yes.
Didn't know that. Fun fact.
Yes, I did. But go ahead.
Mhm. So
I think
I
that's
look.
absolutely hilarious. Every time I hear you call the kids East Side High, Fair East Side. Like what? Go ahead.
Yeah, because it still give me my purpose. Because I know what kind of background I came from. I know what kind of struggle I came up in, and the things that I saw in my environment. And I always pose the question to my students and people when I ask them about nature versus nurture. Because I tell them, just because your environment is a certain kind of way doesn't necessarily mean that you will grow up to be the things that's in your environment. Is either instilled in you, you were raised this way, or your environment is going to make you a way. Which one is it going to be? So I always pose that question to them. So when I say this Fair East Side, I thought
And
that.
just to let the viewers know, we are born and raised west side of Detroit, lower middle class family. We weren't dirt poor, but we definitely was nowhere near rich. So modest beginnings, humble beginnings,
Humble.
very humble.
So I would say the things that I thought that I experienced when I was coming up as a elementary, middle school, and stuff, because I say middle school right here, because why I teach it. They right here at the point where they know who they're going to be and they don't know who they're going to be, and they're changing. Their face is changing, their body is developing, and all of this different type of stuff. However, the situations, the household, the people are completely different from the 90s. And the parent structure, the family orientation around these kids that's coming up is drastically different. Um, they, where we were coming up,
We
we
come
were,
from a two-parent household.
yes. When we were coming up, we were doing like dare programs. We were marching, say no to drugs, right? Um, we had the rap music and all that other stuff, but these kids today are focused on drill music. They are obsessed with gang culture, whereas we try so hard not to be a part of it. And when you see trouble, you try to get as far away from it as you can. But these kids are like gravitating towards it, and that's their obsession. Right. So in that movie, Joe Clark came to him and said, you smoke crack, don't you? Jump off the bridge, jump, right? And he was going through there and saying how he's the HNIC. The school was in disarray. The test scores were low. The kids were all over the place. And when I go into some of these kids, this is the same type of environment that you would think is just only in a movie. And here it is. These are babies, 11, 12, and 13 years old. They don't have a childhood like we did. They don't, because a lot of them are the parents. They are the parents. They they lack a lot of basic things. And on top of that, that pandemic did a number on these kids because they lack the foundational piece to even be where they at. And that No Child Left Behind thing, I thought they were doing it in my time. No, they're doing it right now, because some of these kids that should have been left behind, they've been pushed forward, and now when they get to middle school, it's like this what you got to work with. This what you have to work with. And
Now you say, let's backtrack a little bit because you just brought up something very, very, very crucial, which is COVID and how these kids are basically the result of COVID, right? Not even necessarily the result of COVID, but the aftermath and the education system. Now, you mentioned something about your daughter having deficits. Now, you and I know she's extremely bright, extremely smart, but I believe when COVID hit, she was in the second grade. What grade was
yes,
she in?
she was in second
She
grade.
was in the second grade. So, you and I both know at that time that is crucial time for kids to be in classroom, to be in school. So now from the to uproot her from the classroom and to do everything online where she's just now learning, she's in the second grade. They don't know anything about being online. They don't know anything about doing school online. Most parents didn't know anything about doing school online, but you say that okay, you held her back when you didn't necessarily have to, but you felt more comfortable holding her back. Not because she couldn't do the work, but you didn't want to just pass her on. Why
Right.
did you do that?
Because I know, we'll backtrack a little bit. I was working in the plant when this happened. She was in second grade. I was working in the plant. So I was already on these 10-hour shifts. But when I looked to see the kind of homework she was doing, it was giving my baby YouTube videos. So when she's supposed to be learning her or not phonics, but phonics, her math, her writing, everything they had her doing was like put an emoji in, put a raise your hand up. Like the learning, it took me back. And I'm like, wait a minute. Like, you gonna have my baby sit here for 8 hours in front of it and you showing her YouTube videos? Immediate no. So the job, I stopped. And that was another part I skipped. And that's how I got back into school because I needed to see what my child was being taught. And it was so alarming. I sound alarm because this is not how you're gonna teach her. So I allowed her to go on to third grade. But when school reconvened in the third grade, it was like mid of the semester when it came down for her to do show and tell on paper. She couldn't tell me. It wasn't satisfactory for me. And everybody was telling me it's okay because all the kids is like this. And I said, no, because it's going to get harder. It's not going to get easier. The work that she's going to do, be given is going to be harder. Now, how do I look sending her on forward when I see that she can't, she's having a hard time with putting a sentence together because she was used to being on a computer, talking it into the computer, and it structured it for her. When it came down to put pencil to paper, she couldn't do it. When it came down to problem solving, she couldn't do it. She knew every calculating trick. She knew everything. She can work a computer fabulously. However, pen and paper. I need her to be able to do that. She couldn't, so I held her back. And I went back and forth with these people about it. And I'm not ashamed about it or anything. I got her an IEP.
And what is
Because
the IEP?
it's an individual development plan, educational plan. What that is, you have accommodations and modifications. What that looks like for her, because I know there's some delays. She has more
And
time to
is delays due to not her intellectually, but the whole school system setup
the whole school.
being on the computer. It's not her intellectually, it was
Right.
the educational setup when they
Yes,
took
that's what.
them out of the classroom and put them online.
Let me explain that a little further. What I mean by processing, you gave them a tool, which was the computers, to give them immediate answers really quickly, right? And then you want to reconvene school, and now you think that they're able to put pencil to paper very quickly and structure sentences and paragraphs and put them together, and you want them to do it in 3 minutes. A paragraph. She couldn't do it. Some could, some can't. And it was more people that couldn't that that could. And I feel like all of those kids should have been held back and just repeated, but they just moved them along. But um, her accommodation modification gives her extended time to process information. That motor skill, far as writing, she don't write as fast as everyone else. I know that. So I put those safeguards in place. So even if you want her to give you an exit ticket or give you some kind of formative assessment and she's not able to complete that right away, she can verbalize that to you. She can communicate that to you. She's an artist. She likes to draw. So if she can't articulate herself in the manner that you want her to, she could put a PowerPoint together and draw it out or whatever. I put so many things in place where she can be able to give you an answer that there's no way she's going to be behind. And you have to extend her this time. She gets to use calculators, manipulatives, anything that's going to help her be successful. I put those safeguards in place, and I think a lot of parents should have done that, and they didn't, and we're getting the aftermath of that now.
So fast forward to the state of these kids now. Do you think it's fair to say that all of these children should have IDPs?
Yes, I think
Because you
they
say she isn't necessarily a COVID baby, but these kids under her are. Why?
yes, but because you got to think about it. She was in the second grade. So these kids that's coming into middle school right now, they were in kindergarten. And kindergarten and first grade, those basic skills that they should have got, the sight words
10
they
more
should have got.
minutes. 10 more minutes.
Okay. Them sight words and all those different things that they should have got, they skipped over those pieces, and those were critical pieces and steps that they missed. And so when they got back to school in the second grade, those kids were just being pushed along. And now that we have, this AI stuff, I found being inside of the education system, teachers don't even teach from the curriculum. Some don't. They go in and they generate a PowerPoint or a lesson plan or an assignment and give it to you off a chat. And it's not even work or content they have been taught your child. So you have to be able to go in there and advocate for your kids. Your life can't be that busy where you can't check in and see what's going on with your kid, because this is why they are messed up. Teachers are taking the shortcut because they're underpaid, they're undervalued, and it's hard to work with things that they can't read, they can't write, they can't critical think, they can't count. And as teachers, we get penalized for that. When it's a collaborative team, it's supposed to be support from the parent, it's supposed to be support from the teacher, it's supposed to be resources. So I'm not saying IEP makes your child, those negative stereotypes. It ensures that they won't fail. You're giving them that extra accommodation and modification that they need so they can get to where they're going, because they will be left behind because you don't have those safeguards in place, and you can't get mad at nobody else but yourself in this instance, because you as a parent know what your child is capable of.
Really quickly. Okay. We've had private conversations in which you tell me that these kids, they want to be gangsters, they want to be rappers. The little girls are super fast. You told me that the kids said that you were saying something very, very, very derogatory. I had never even heard of this before. You said the kids called you glizzen or glazing. What did you
They
say?
said,
You
I
were
was
glazing.
glad.
And what does that mean?
Um, they said that I was doing a sexual act.
These are what middle schoolers said to you, their teacher.
I'm glazing because I require them to do the work. I'm requiring you to do the best that you can do. They have been told their whole life that they're great and they're awesome. And here it is, I'm coming in because I'm new and I'm flashing a light on all this stuff that's going on. You can't make me come in here and undo all of this. It's a problem all the way around. It's a problem in the school, it's a problem outside of school. These kids lack basic resources, basic needs. When I mean it's a difference from when you and I was growing up, it is so completely different because these parents are different.
I was going to ask you about that. Talk briefly about some of these parents encounters you've had.
Um, I, I'm trying to gather these words. The encounters that I have with these parents, I understand why they kids are the way they are. They come in there high out they mind. You can smell it on them. These parents are alcoholics, drug addicts, multiple kids, or some of them are single parents. Not saying anything about it. They're single parents, but they're working 2 and 3 jobs. They got a bunch of kids. So essentially, these kids are being adults. They're raising their siblings. And the encounters that I have with the parents is always the teacher fault. It's not their fault. I don't know why everywhere else they doing good. Well, everybody they lying. I'm social studies. I shouldn't be in here teaching your baby what a graph is or a chart is and how that works. And they in middle school when they still doing 0.56 plus zero point 0.3 and can't calculate that. They don't have nothing to do with me. I'm not ELA. I don't teach you how to do figurative language. That's not my department, but I'll teach it to you. So, it's just that they don't want to take accountability. It's like they send their kids to daycare. They send their kids to daycare.
What is your outlook on the future generation of these children?
I am scared. I know one thing. Can't none of them be a doctor for me. The state of these kids, this is an emergency. I am sounding the alarm. These babies need help. They can't count money. If we don't intervene and do something for these kids, and I mean seriously, do something for them, they're gonna kill it. They're gonna kill off each other. No, no, no lie. Them kids come to school and they whole gangs. I have parents coming up to the school trying to shoot other kids. It's some people that's in jail right now for brandishing guns at kids.
The state of the union of these children is scary.
Yeah, it's scary, and I'm scared for my son. I'm scared for my son, and I know that I'm trying to do some good out here, and who better to be someone in front of them that came from the neighborhood, look like them. It ain't no kind of game you can run on me. I know it all. You're not running no game on me. But what I can do is give you backstories, give you real life experiences, because it ties into social studies because of civics. And it's a world information that you need to know. And I'm giving it to you firsthand. I'm literally right here. I went to Redford. I went to Cody. I probably know y'all mamas and daddies. And they probably look like Maya. I know me. So I'm the best candidate to teach your child and advocate for them, but you gotta work with me. You gotta work with me.
And with that being said, any final words, Maya? Any final words? I think you just said the final words right there.
I did. Work with me. We're a village. Representation. We give our service by going off, being productive, and pouring back into our people.
With that being said, Maya, I thank you for being my very first guest during this platform. I hope to have you on many more times. And with that, you all have a very, very great night.